fanboys and fangirls, on today's episode of Technoid, the entire episode is going to be focused heavily on the iPhone 14 because that's the thing that everybody's clicking on nowadays, and truthfully I'm behind on videos, so let's try to get something that'll bring up the views and also help with some growth. But anyway, today's episode we're going to focus on the new reports of a new OLED panel coming to the iPhone 14 thanks to that new punch hole design, whatever's going on with that. Also on today's episode, to my 5G fans, you are in luck because today's episode has something to do with the inside of the phone, especially the 5G modem. We will talk about the benefits and negatives of Apple's in-house 5G modem and talk to you the future of what it's going to be like from here on out with Apple and the iPhone 14. All of that on today's episode, so stay tuned. So the main story for the day, the only one that we're going to talk about is the iPhone 14. Now, as you know, the iPhone 14 rumors are continuing to ramp up. Everybody's talking about them. Me, Sneak Mobile Tech, John Prosser, everybody is talking about the iPhone 14. And for good reason. There's a lot of hype around it because of this ugly design that replaces an even uglier design. I'm not saying it's the worst design in the world, not the one we have now, the notch. I'm talking about this camera punch hole, whatever, to pill shape and then punch hole. Basically, this is a huge deal because this is the first time that Apple is going to venture off and give their consumers a design that's very reminiscent to Android phones, but are also going to finally get rid of something that I don't think anybody has liked. Sure, they've gotten used to it, but at the core of it, do they even like the notch? I don't know. But there's a lot of things to talk about in today's episode, and we're going to get right into it, starting with the OLED panel. Now, as you know, because this is using a new cutout and some kind of hybrid design in regards to what John Prosser said in regards to them figuring out a way to get the under-display panel to kind of work, according to the manufacturers at 9to5Mac, basically the authors, not manufacturers themselves. According to them, they say that the Samsung Displays unit will most likely be using advanced materials to not only supply the OLED material sets, but they will be using M12 material sets found in OLED. According to a statement, OLED layers are compressed and stacked from the bottom Sorry, guys, I am having a stressful week, so bear with me while I'm reading, because I am doing a lot. But anyway, basically the way it doesn't go is that they say the CPL is placed on an adjustment level, and then they will have a G prime, that emissions layer, and then support the green color. Basically, they're talking about the way that this panel is going to be used, but then going back to that M12 material, it will help to offset not only the materials that are used with the under-display Face ID technology per se, but that also it will be more advanced and take advantage of even better, denser materials. Now, what this will do with the display, and if you're confused, I'm going to break it down just now. Basically, this material is going to be super, super thin. It's the thinnest material that at least an iPhone is going to get. Now, if you take a look at the iPhone 10, 10s, 11, they've always had a semi-symmetrical design. And then, of course, the iPhone 12 and 13 kind of flattened that out. Well, the iPhone 14 is going to make it even thinner, but this time around, because they're using the punch hole pill shape, it'll make it even smeared off and will have less bezels and more screen to body ratio, which is a huge plus, but also it will accommodate that under display Face ID technology. So that's some cool tech going into that display, and of course Samsung is the most reliable when it comes to these displays. Now, for me, I am cool with this because I don't think there's any reason for me to complain about the material or whatever they're using to accommodate this new system. But if there's only one thing that I'm worried about is really, will the OLED panel not only be adjusted for long-term use, but will the panel itself be supporting features that Androids have had, and if Apple is even putting that in. What I mean by this is simple. Always on display, maybe a few OLED tricks here and there, and basically the burn-in. Now, as you know, they have fixed those problems later on with newer releases, but several iPhones have had burn-in issues with OLED panels So let's see if Apple continues to progress in stride and also finally makes these panels accessible to always on display. And now we get to the main story, the 5G modem. Now, as you know, the iPhones are currently using Qualcomm modems. Back in 2019, they settled an agreement to not only stop this lawsuit or whatever was going on, but they agreed to then use the modems in the next set of iPhone releases. And of course, this started with the iPhone 12. The 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, the 12 Mini if you want to throw it in. And then this year, they're now using the X65 Qualcomm modems, which enhances the 5G cellular technology, enhances the stability, and also keeps the partnership going. But as we've known, Apple did make it clear that even though they were agreeing to use their modems, they did have plans to remove Qualcomm away and go with their in-house technology. Now, as you know, prior to this, they did buy out the Intel modem division, so Apple took full control and have been working on their own modem, and that's exactly what is being predicted for the iPhone 14, because according now to Mac rumors, Apple will now be supplying their 5G chipset. Let's go with that. 5G chipset. Basically their in-house modem, which will be supplied by TSMC, and basically they have a range of frequencies not only in the chips, but that they are actually going to be a modified X65 modem that we have now, but with few enhancements. We don't have exactly the biggest amount of details of what we're predicting, but based on the physical stature of the chip itself, it is going to be smaller than the X65, and it will also accommodate the Bionic chip that comes in the iPhone 14, and not just in scale and size, but in performance. And the benefit of this is now the iPhone will have more room for a bigger battery. They will have more room to make everything more, how would I say this? Clean, I would say. Make it nice and clean, but mainly the big thing is battery. Everybody wants better battery, so there you go. It frees up space for more battery. But with that said though, there is, of course, a negative. And the biggest negative is how well it will perform. Now, as you know, Apple had a huge rocky past with those Qualcomm and Intel saga. If you know anything about the Intel days, you will know that cellular performance was abysmal. Sneed Mobile Tech will confirm that, Carlos S Tech will confirm that, any cellular YouTube with a cellular channel will confirm that the Intel modems were trash. It was so bad, people. When Intel's modems were in the iPhones, it was so bad that Apple had to throttle the Qualcomm modems from the iPhone 7s to match the performance of the Intel modems. That's how bad it was. Now, to be fair, they did acquire their division, they did acquire the pre-existing department, and Apple, as you know, continues to develop and evolve. But with that said though, the question is how well will it perform for 5G in terms of bandwidth support, also of course coming with Wi-Fi 6E reports are saying. But the main thing is, will it stack up in performance to Qualcomm? Now, the report does also say that Apple will finish out its agreement with Qualcomm, simultaneously releasing their chip as well. So any remaining iPhones, they will continue using the Qualcomm modems. So for example, the iPhone SE will get that modem, and then when the iPhone 14 rolls around, maybe half of them will get Qualcomm, half. We don't know that extent, but we do know the agreement does last until next year, which is this year. So overall, wrapping everything up, the iPhone 14 is going to be a whole new ball game for Apple, and this is a good thing because everybody wants this phone to be not just a great phone, but to be a new phone. And that's exactly what's going to happen with this phone. Sure, we can make fun of the punch hole in the pill shape all we want, but at the end of the day, it really does look like Apple is ready to move on from the notch. They're ready to start new, and they're trying to make a phone that is powerful in-house, but also they're trying to do something different. And you know what? I'm all for it. So Apple, you got my attention, you got me hooked. Let's see what you do when October rolls around, or September. Let's see what happens.